What's up, everyone? Welcome back to A Line in the Stars. I'm Jordan, and we are here today with, oh man, the Fett's Vet and the Slave One. Now, I am recording this the morning that I leave for Wonderfest, because I can't plan my life very well. So, in an effort to get this episode out, I'm going to attempt to do this in one take, and so if there are any mistakes, please excuse me as I go along. But in this first episode, it was funny, as I was mentioning in the Ready Room the other day, that this was going to be the penultimate episode. And in reviewing all of the work that I've done to finish this model, it kind of wound up being, I've got a lot of footage, and so there's going to be 2 more episodes. And I'm basically just going to make it so that we cover each phase of this. And in this phase, we're going to be talking about, specifically, lighting up the engines. Now, when I started this model, I had no intentions of actually doing any lighting. Obviously, I wasn't... I started this back in December, maybe? December, January, somewhere in that neighborhood. It might have been a little bit later on. This year is kind of getting away from me now at this point, just like it is for all of us. But basically, I decided to, just build it and focus on the paint job, and I wasn't comfortable with lighting yet. But as I've gotten comfortable with lighting, it was like, okay, let's go ahead and get this lit up and do a very simple job. And so the idea here is that I basically took 6 blinking yellow, or I guess flickering yellow LEDs, and I needed to basically get them wired up for 9 volts, and I needed to basically get them put into place and wired up in a very simple manner, as it was basically just going to be one solid power source. And so, as you see here, I'm basically finishing up all my wiring duties. So I've taken a yellow 3mm flickering LED, and I have attached a resistor to it for 9-volt use. So I'm going to be powering this with a 9-volt battery, as we'll see here at the end of the episode. And basically, I have it all set up. I've basically gone through and got the resistor on with the proper colored wires coming off the positive and negative side. And then here I'm just taking a lighter, and I'm taking... Ooh, I burned myself there. I forgot about that. I left that in because I burned myself. But I'm just shrink wrapping my wires and getting them ready for installation. Now, this was a fairly easy install. I basically had an idea, and I needed to see if it would work. And so in order to make it work with the stock parts that we have these clear engine pieces that I eventually painted red. And what we did is basically cut the little nubs off the inside that you glue into. And I chose to instead just glue the whole engine assembly together without using the peg. Now, I'm using a 3mm drill on my pin vise, or a 3mm bit on my pin vise here. I wanted to get the LED in there while having the back of the LED hold itself in place, so that I only needed to use a little bit of UV resin in order to hold it. Now, as you see here, I'm going to fit one of the LEDs in. It fits perfectly in the hole and doesn't go any further because the little lip on the edge of the LED prevents it from going all the way in. We've done both sides, and here's where I determined that when the LED comes out, I need to clip the little... basically, you hold the engine pods in place with the clear part, and it has a little post. And so I'm just using my straight edge nippers here, and or single-bladed my single-bladed nippers. That's kind of a tough one to say. I've always made the mistake of calling it the straight edge. I don't know why. But I just use my single-bladed nippers to cut off the little knobs. Now, up in this top engine part, there were 4 little holes where the molding basically came up and created a little nub. I decided to run an LED in each one of those 4 holes, and then put something over the top to give the effect of a glowing and flickering engine. And in the coming episodes, you'll see how that turned out. I feel like the work was I was actually pretty proud of the work. So you can see there's like a little bar, and then there was like basically 4 little spots to drill into. Doing some cleanup here, and what I found interesting is that my idea worked. Like, I know it sounds interesting, but like my idea worked. Like, I couldn't believe it. So all I did was just take the leads and bend them slightly down. Now, right behind here, there is what do you call it? There's an arm or a bar that holds each one of the wing attachments to the ship. And so I have to be able to get that down into the channel. And I'm just test fitting everything here, both down below and up top, just to see how everything is going to go. I was also... this whole part, I think this 30-minute episode is what it's going to wind up being, about 28 minutes or so, was pulled from about 3.5 hours worth of stream and various other recording bits. And there was some interesting things happening on stream while we were talking about this. Not the infamous Ian fart, but, there was some interesting things happening on stream. I believe this was a Friday night stream that we did this. All right, so now I've got all my holes drilled, and I now need to test my lights. And here we go. They're basically just candle LEDs. So they just flicker a little bit, and I have found in my various applications of them, they just look really, really good inside of the model. And so, yeah, I don't know. Somehow, this model I've just gotten lucky with kind of every step of the way, including here with these LEDs and the way they turned out. What I'm doing to secure it in place is I'm taking some UV resin. I basically, once again, as a reminder, I drilled a 3mm hole, just enough to put the LED through, but the backing or the little nub at the end, basically it's just enough to hold the LED in place, and then just a little bit of the UV resin to get it secured. I didn't want to use Superglue or any other type of glue, as it basically can cloud up any clear pieces, and so I'm using UV resin more. I'm finding that the applications are kind of endless for it, actually. Well, not endless. I mean, you could really stick a lot of things together if you have access to the outside. It's very interesting. It's like an epoxy, I guess. I don't know. So here's that bar piece that I was talking about. And what it does is it sits in between, and it sits freely. It moves freely in between the model, so you can position the wings either in the landed or in the flight position. I'll be positioning mine in the flight position. And as you can see here, all I'm doing is testing to see whether or not that's going to turn with the way the LED is put in. So just kind of templating, figuring out how I'm going to do it. These are the things that I normally would edit out, but, I wanted to show for the sake of it, in these videos. Thanks. I wanted to show for the sake of these videos that, I test fit and will move along, and try to make sure that I'm not making mistakes as I'm going, because, man, early on I would have had to, go back up, do this again, because, oh yeah, I forgot about how to do that, or I had to do that part or whatever, and it's just, God, to think of how far I've come in just the last 6-7 months. Well, I guess it's been 9 months since I started building models again. Wow, time really does fly. I think I've made 165 videos now, which is mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. I can't believe it. So here, once again, we're just finishing up the engines, and what I'm doing is I'm putting the LED straight in, and then holding that in place, and then bending the anode and cathode down, I left the anode and cathode longer, along with the full length of the resistors, so that I had room to bend and move. And I like to use the LEDs as holders as well, keep themselves in place, so to say. Now, I did make too many. I've got a couple more of these laying around now. Like I've already found a couple of uses for these flickering LEDs, and I've got tons of them. So, needless to say, I will be using them for a very long time to come. Yeah, I was really pleased with how this turned out. I had a concept. I wasn't even sure going into the episode, like, especially into this recording session, of whether or not I was going to lighten the model or not. And because it's going to Wonderfest, of course you have to light it. It can't just be a regular, hey, I'm just a stock model thing. So, got to get it lit. So now trying to get all of my wires arranged. I'm going to take a second to get all of my positives and negatives hooked up together, so that I can run the power and check to see everything is still good. At this point, I could remove and fix if I needed to, but it was one of those things where you just got to test and test and test and test. And success. All of our lights work, and as you can see there, it looks really, really good. It just kind of gives the effect of a burning engine. Now, as you get a little bit closer, you can tell that there are LEDs in there. And as I'm putting some of these clear pieces over, I'm just kind of determining fit. Later on in the episode, we will see, how I create the clear cover for that. But yeah, it turned out really, really good. And I just, sometimes, like when you light a model, Donnie, if you're watching, it is 100% correct. The model is not complete until it's lit, and I can't disagree with you. Thankfully, I've only built a couple that haven't had lighting in it now, so even my paper models these days will have lighting. So now we are basically going in and getting our assembly done. I needed to finish getting the power set up. Here I'm taking the 9-volt connector, and I am basically just soldering together all of the positives, and then all of the negatives, and then I'm just hooking up the 9-volt connector, so that we can power the model down the line. Now, I do test a couple times, but not with a 9-volt in the beginning. I don't want to exhaust the batteries if I can avoid it. So what the beautiful thing is with these clips for your power supply, you just clip right into the 9-volt connector, and voila. It looks really good. I got to admit, once all of the engine cones were on, and I got that clear part over the top, kind of a preface to later on in the series. But it turned out really, really good, and I'm really proud of the work that was done here. Like, this model, for whatever reason, it was blessed. It was a fantastic build. I really enjoyed building it. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about painting, I would say, specifically on this model. I learned how to weather on this model. And I did a lot of weathering off camera as kind of like a surprise for the final episode, so I can't wait to show you guys. So here, I am now just taking that arm. What do you want to call that? What is that? the rotating piece. I'm going to call it the arm for the wings. Basically, I'm just getting them all affixed in place. The one knock on this model is that the parts, for whatever reason, seem to want to bow. It took a little bit of manipulation and gluing and clamping in order to get these pieces connected properly. I still feel like there's a bow in the middle, and there's nothing I can do about it now here at the end of the model. So, it's just one of those things where, these MPC models, I know they're not the greatest, but I can tell you this model was a blast to build, and outside of just a little bit of the bowing of the parts, I gotta say that everything went together really, really nice. Didn't take much manipulation, didn't have to do much extra sanding other than just the usual, going around the outside of parts, but man, this model really did go together really well, and I had a blast building it. As far as glad as I am to be done, I'm grateful for this model because it taught me a lot, and I'm bringing it to Wonderfest, and I'm really damn proud of the work that was done. I'm not a very boastful person, but it did turn out really, really good. I can't wait for you all to see it here in a couple weeks, and you'll get some views of it this weekend as we show our stuff from Wonderfest. So here I am just doing some assembly, and I'm test fitting. These are the engine pods. You can see up on the left hand side there, you can see the other side. And basically what you do is you surround the piece. It's keyed. So when you see the two pieces put together here in a second, you'll see that there's a slight key at the end. And it's just meant to hold it around the edge of the post. And you want to actually secure it to the post. For whatever reason, and you'll see it here, I believe. Maybe. But when you glue it, you want to secure it. And what I didn't do was secure it to the post. I was trying to make sure that it was moving and that it was free. But you're supposed to also secure it to the post. For whatever reason, the CA just did not want to grip or hold or do anything that I wanted it to do. So it was very frustrating. And I wound up actually here in just a couple of minutes, or maybe a minute or two, depends on the edit. I wind up using basically UV resin here as well. I gotta say, UV resin, when applied properly, is an amazing tool for getting pieces put together without creating a huge mess. The resin itself I haven't seen it react with too many things, and so yeah, as you can see here, and the top of my ugly face and the man bun, I use a little bit of UV resin to secure it at the ends. And here we're just assembling the top portion of the wing. These wings were super cool to put together, and I really like how they did the articulation on the piece. There's a solid piece that we'll be building in the next episode that finishes the wing, and it just looks super, super good. Like, man, this is such a cool model. So as you can see there, maybe you caught it, but it is keyed, and it will only go in a certain way, which will match up with what we saw on the other side. And all I'm doing now is just determining that everything is moving and shaking properly. And we wind up getting everything put in, and I'm like, why is it so floppy? I'm trying to figure out how to get that going, and I'm using the CA at first to get it secured, but then, once again, UV resin, it comes in and saves the day. This is probably, for as cool of a part as this would probably be my one knock on this model, is that I wound up having to use UV resin there to kind of secure it in place. So now, this is like a day or so later, and I have been looking around I don't have any clear styrene sheets. I need to pick some up still. I just have black styrene. So I was looking around through all of my stuff to determine what I could use to create the little light panel, or I guess the engine light clear part over the top. And so I don't even know what this was for. I think it was for some air parts, maybe even drill bits. I don't know. Found it in one of my cases, and it's just a very clear, nice clear part. Very simply just took the Sharpie, traced out the piece, and created a little custom I don't know, what do you call that? A clear part, like the engine clear part. Yeah, we'll just go with whatever I just said. Sure. On the spot, I'd probably edit that out and go, okay, well, no. So, here it is live, and I'm just saying things. And so this is all the stuff that normally gets edited out. But all I'm doing is going through, test fitting, and getting it all trimmed out. I wind up, after getting it taken care of properly and cut and fit, I take some sandpaper and I do some light diffusion and sand off both sides of the clear parts, so it wound up getting nice and like diffused. And then I took clear red, no, it was the Mr. Hobby. Yeah, it was the Mr. Hobby clear red, and I put it over the top. And basically, it turned out really, really good. There was a little bit of, like, I didn't sand clearly properly, so it wound up being one of those things where, you know, there's some hot spots. And, you know, with the engines, I guess it kind of works. And with them all flickering, you only really tell the hot spots when you're putting an under direct light. When what's actually installed, you really can't tell. And so, yeah, you know, it was, trial and error. So we got that taken care of, and then it was time to move on to figuring out how we're going to power the model. I had two options. We could use the cockpit, or we could use the ramp as the drop down as a place to put the battery. In hindsight, I think I would have rather have used the ramp, as all of the stuff that I did here wound up getting modified down the line, but the concept still stayed the same. So I think whoever built this model knew what people were going to do. This cockpit compartment, now I mentioned in the previous episode that I wasn't sure how I was going to approach doing the cockpit. Well, this has been determined because I needed a place to put power. So whoever built this model designed it with a 9-volt battery in mind, as you can see. At the very bottom, it's a perfect spacing for the 9-volt connector at the very bottom. What I'm doing right now is just simply cutting out a slot for the wires to basically have a nice room to move around. But the cockpit is the size of the 9-volt battery, and I was just absolutely blown away by this. I think I did it in the cockpit for the simple reason that it was a novel idea to me, and the fact that it fit. Now, it fits before you assemble it in the model, and if you're going to assemble it with one 9-volt battery for the rest of its life, you only light it once, and you barely touch it, and yeah, it'll be fine. You run it like a smoke detector, like most 9-volt batteries are, you're going to be just fine. But in this case, you know, it was not one of those, like, for as cool as this was, I did wind up having to do some modifications. But for the sake of this episode, I did want to show how I went through, because all I really did in the end was just take I just took my single-bladed nippers and cut more of that area out so that I could push the battery down a little bit into the model, and then I used a piece of double-sided tape to hold the battery in place. I just needed a little bit of purchase room to be able to pull the battery in and out. I wish that I had installed a switch. Regrets were definitely had, so to say. So, as you see here, you can see where the slot was created, and when you put the 9-volt connector in place, at this point I'm thinking, oh my god, this is glorious. The little 9-volt connector, like, slots in between the like right there, and holds itself very firmly in place. Like, I was able to put the battery in and out without, like, pushing that out. It was kind of insane. Now, for the sake of quality of the model, yeah, I was going to glue it somehow, but man, as you can see here, look at that. Look at the 9-volt battery. Like, it just fits perfectly in place. Like, I was just blown away. And you'll see my hand movements here. I'm just like, what? Yeah, I couldn't believe it. You know, it was glorious. And, you know, yeah, I mean, right, dude? So what I do is, after my befuddlement is over, I gave a few minutes to think about how I was going to secure this in place. For sake of clarity, I did wind up having to cut this original one out, having to resolder in a new piece, chaos ensued later on in the build, but yeah. So we just simply take some UV resin here, secure it, lock it in place. I'm using my tweezers just to check to make sure that it is hardened. I held the UV light in place for about a minute or so, as I do for all UV resin applications. And so, yeah, it turned out really good. Like, once again, I was blown away. You know, if I was thinking, like I said, I would have done it through the, what do you call it? The cargo bay door, where you see Boba Fett pushing Han up when he's in carbonite, encased in carbonite, and that would have been so easy. I could have just lifted the flap up and down, but either way, I found this to be a really cool concept, and I also needed to keep my lights running for a while. So as a reminder, just make sure that you're when you're lighting up any one of your model kits, before you fully assemble your model, run your LEDs for 24 hours consistently to make sure that they hold in place. And so, yeah, as we got to the end here, you know, it was a fairly cool build, and lighting this model was an absolute joy. You know, it was one of those things where I was really, really, really blown away at how much skill I've learned. I'm going to go ahead and tout myself a little bit, but how many skills I've learned, and the application, and thought process, and the creativity. Here, this is just pure me trying to figure out how to light the model. I'm not asking for help from anybody. You know, as you can see here, I have since picked up black UV resin bottles. I was showing up. Yes, I know I don't get clear. Don't do it during the day. But, you know, just the creativity is coming out, and it was a lot of fun to do this and think it all the way through. And I gotta say, you know, this model has been blessed, and the fact that I get to bring it to Wonderfest, the fact that it's sitting in my suitcase ready to go right now. I leave in 1 hour. So I'm basically laying this down over the top, and in essence, you know, laying it down over the top and saying, hey, you know, I'm going out the door, but knowing that this is going out the door and this was an integral part of this whole build made me feel just super proud of what's been done, especially looking back now that, you know, we're here. And, man, I just got to say that this has been super cool. My friends, this has been a blast. I'm heading out. Fett's Vet is done. And I'm going to Wonderfest. We're going to light it up here, and I'm going to say thank you. I know that there was a million things y'all could have done today. Instead, you spent a couple minutes with me watching me light a model as I rush out the door to go to Wonderfest, and I think that's pretty damn cool. If you guys have any questions or comments, tips, tricks, please leave them down below. If you'd like to support the channel, please like and subscribe. And my friends, until we see each other again, I hope you all have a wonderful day in this beautiful world where you happen to be. And remember that this is the way.